Hello and welcome back to Live from Paris. It's time now for business news with William Edwards from our business desk. Hello, William.
Hi, Lorna.
So the announcement that eurozone bailout funds will be used to help banks directly has been well received by the markets this morning.
Yes,
that summit goes on in
certainly
Brussels.
has. Yeah, the European market's just opening up at the moment, and they are doing very well at the moment. Really liking that news out of the eurozone. We'll see how it does in the long term, but in the short term, at least, things are looking very positive on the markets. The German DAX up 2.6% there, you can see, and it's even better in Paris and indeed in Spain with the IBEX 35 up 3.62%. So very much positive reaction to that Eurozone summit. Let's take a look at Asia as well, where things have been trading, and it was a similar story there as well. And actually, of course, Asia was, of course, trading when the announcement was made about this relatively bold move, bolder than perhaps the markets had expected. You can see the result it had there previously. Previous to the announcement, the Nikkei had been trading down. It's also had an effect on the euro. The currency has, saw an immediate jump of around 1% against the dollar. It's now worth 1.26%. Very much positive reactions there to the in the immediate wake of that announcement.
Okay, and those positive reactions based on, as you said, a surprisingly bold decision at the Eurozone summit, including something of a climb down from Germany.
Yeah, Germany has clearly dropped its opposition to giving bank aid directly from the Eurozone bailout fund. Of course, Spain has been pushing to have this for quite some time because it needs a bailout for its banking system. It's asked for 100 billion euros, and it has been worried that receiving that via the central government and then distributing it to the banks is going to push up its cost of borrowing even further. Now, Germany was worried that by just giving the money straight to the banks themselves, there will be a lack of control. The European Central Bank, it's been announced overnight, is going to be involved in the regulation process, so there is going to be some oversight, but nevertheless, that is quite a big step back for Germany. They really have rolled back this position, unlikely to have happened, in fact, without French support as well, although it was Italy and Spain that really pushed this through.
Okay, and some important consequences from all this for Ireland as well.
That's right, because of course Ireland has been subject to a Eurozone bailout itself, but Irish taxpayers have themselves bailed out their country's banks. Now, if you're an Irish taxpayer waking up this morning, you might be rather annoyed to see that Italy and Spain are getting the option to have their banks bailed out directly from Eurozone bailout funds, when Irish taxpayers, as I say, had to pay their own way, as it were. In fact, the Irish Prime Minister has been saying this morning that there may well be a renegotiation of the terms of Ireland's bailout for the Eurozone, and we could be seeing an improvement of the terms for the Irish bailout there.
Okay, well, the concession on bank bailouts from Germany means that other Eurozone nations will now give the green light for a new growth pact, as we said in the news bulletin. That €120 billion stimulus package has already been criticised by some analysts who say it isn't quite as impressive as it first appears. Take a look.
In the fight between austerity and stimulus in Europe, it's stimulus that's gaining ground. An about turn that's in part thanks to the French president. François Hollande promised his voters a growth pact to counteract Germany's obsession with budgetary cuts.
There's an agreement between state leaders and governments to mobilize every means possible so that 1% of European GDP can be used to boost growth.
That's 120 billion euros, but most of it's coming from existing funds. 60 billion has been allocated to the European Investment Bank, but only 10 billion of that is new capital being made available for loans to small and medium-sized businesses. 55 billion was funds already earmarked for growth projects in poorer regions around Europe. And 5 billion comes from existing project bonds, available for investment in transport, sustainable energy and digital infrastructure.
And this money must flow across Europe, not least to the most vulnerable countries, and help companies grow themselves out of the crisis.
Experts don't have high hopes for the plan. They say the stimulus spending won't be large enough to have any real impact on an economic region as large as Europe.
Well, let's get a bit of companies news now, William. And the maker of Blackberry, Research in Motion, has suffered another setback.
Yeah, they've further delayed their next generation operating system and handset called Blackberry 10. It was due to be released later this year. It's now been pushed back into 2013. And in fact, it was already delayed, and it's just another setback for the Canadian company. They're going to be shedding 5,000 jobs. That's towards a third of their workforce as they struggle to meet the challenge from Apple and Google. Now, of course, their sales have been falling. The company says that they are stabilizing, but, well, that remains to be seen whether that is really true in the future. But they're also trying to get into the tablet market. That hasn't gone very well, with their Playbook being not very well received by consumers and reviewers alike. And people are starting to ask whether BlackBerry can continue as a company for too much longer. Things are really at that stage. Quite impressive, well, quite incredible, really, considering the stranglehold almost that some would have said it had on the corporate phone market just a few years ago.
Bad news. We'll have to wait and see how that handset, whether that handset comes out and what it's like when it does. But thank you very much for that. Now, staying with technology, France marks the end of an era tomorrow when the Minitel system will be switched off. That was a 1970s technology and a precursor of the World Wide Web. But despite being ahead of its time, it never really took off outside its home country. Kate Gillan takes a look back to the future.
The TGV, Concorde and Minitel, all inventions from France's technological dawn in the 1970s. Minitel was the world's first consumer online terminal and brought networking to households years before the World Wide Web.
I think that with the Minitel we invented a lot of today's technology. The fact that a terminal could access a service located at the end of the world was invented by the Minitel. I mean the internet network and all online services.
Thanks to this machine, the French public could electronically check the weather, book a holiday, monitor their bank accounts or view share prices more than a decade before any other country. One of its biggest hits was the so-called Minitel Rose, the world's first electronic adult chat rooms. In its heyday, the Minitel was a fixture in 25 million French households, and even after the spread of the internet, many people in France continued to use it.
Since I am not computer literate, the Minitel system was perfectly fine for me. And as I didn't have a computer, and since Social Security was asking us to transfer the data via the network, I chose this system.
France Telecom is inviting users to hand in their terminals for recycling, but the company suspects that many will hold on to the little plastic boxes out of nostalgia and as a proud reminder that France was once at the forefront of the global online revolution.
A sad end for Minitel there, but carrying on with some sad news, the fallout from the record fine for Barclays Bank is continuing over in the UK.
Yeah, I think this is a story that's going to run quite a bit. Of course, fines were announced on Wednesday of over $450 million for Barclays, nearly $500 million there. That was because traders at the company over 5 years have been trying to influence a key interest rate, which is used to set interest rates, payment rates on things such as credit cards, on corporate loans, and Barclays was influencing this unduly for their own benefit. Now, the CEO, chairman I should say, Bob Diamond, has said he'll waive his bonus, but that's not been enough for many politicians in the UK. Even the Prime Minister, David Cameron, has called for senior managers to take full responsibility. Could this be a code for calling for him to resign? Well, we'll see, but that is what a lot of people are calling for. But Diamond so far is resisting the pressure, saying he's not going to step down.
OK, well, we will see how that pans out. Thank you very much indeed, William Edwards, for that look at today's business news. And that's just about it from us for now. Thanks for joining us, and do stay tuned. Melissa Bell will be here right after the weather with more news headlines. Bye for now.